we're going to cover how to create multiple levels. All of that, in the most fundamental sense, is actually kind of easy. All we have to do is to create multiple level scenes. Unfortunately, it isn't that easy, simply because our level contains quite a bit of code. For example, to create the laser or the grenades, all of that codes exist inside of one level scene. If we made multiple level scenes, that would not be available. Now, we could copy the code over, but that would be really inefficient. Imagine later on, you might have hundreds of levels and you wouldn't want to copy over the code every single time. If you had to make a single change, this would just not work anymore. Now, to illustrate all of this a bit better, let's have a look at all of this in Godot. Right now, we have a single level, so I can zoom out and we have all of this. A fairly basic level, but for now, this is pretty good. If I wanted to create a second level, in the most basic sense, all I would have to do is create another scene. This would be a 2D scene, and let's rename it right away to level 2. The name here doesn't matter so much. I am going to delete all of this in just a bit anyway. So if you don't want to code along for this short bit, don't worry too much about it. For this level 2, I could, for example, add another scene, which would be the player. If I save all of this under scenes and levels, there we have level 2, and now I have level 2. This one contains the player, and I guess just so that we have something else, let me add the bat in there as well. So there we have a bat and the player. If you want to test an individual scene, you wouldn't click on this play icon. Instead, you will click on this one. With that, you are only running the current scene. So now if I click on that, the player is still working around. However, now we don't have a camera. And if I shoot, we only get the particles, but we don't get an actual laser. And that is because all of the logic for that happens inside of the level. Meaning all of this code here, 35 lines of code, are only available inside of this level. They are not available inside of level 2. Which is why all of this is incredibly limited. As a consequence, I will close the scene and go to levels and level 2 and delete this scene, because it's simply not an efficient way to create multiple levels. Instead, let's talk about a much better way. The concept we need is called inheritance. Basically what that means is we want to create a parent level scenes, and this one is going to contain all of the logic. So for example, this one would contain the logic for shooting a laser, shooting a grenade, and anything else that we could need. But this parent level scene isn't actually going to be visible. Instead, what we are going to do is when we are creating any other level scene, these level scenes are going to inherit from the parent level scene. That way, they have all of the important code, but we can create multiple instances of that scene. That way, we could have hundreds of levels, they would all share the same code base, and then you could even add additional parts. Godot is making all of that actually quite easy, so let's jump right in and let's have a look at all of that. What I want to do is to have this level as the parent scene, and then I'm going to create an inside level and an outside level, and both are going to inherit from this level. That way, we can keep all of the code we have written so far, and then have two other scenes inheriting from this code. Or at least from parts of this code. You're going to see in a second what I mean. When you look at the top left, there we have scene. And the first entry is new scene. Besides that though, right below, we have a new inherited scene. If I click on that, Godot is giving me another dialog. In there, it tells me to open up a scene. The scene we are opening up would be the parent scene. And right now, this would be level. So this is what I want to open. And now we get another scene. And let me put both of those scenes right next to each other so you can see the differences. Also, I guess I should close everything else so things are a bit easier to see. Right. Now we have the level and we have an unsaved new scene. If I minimize everything in there, you can see now we have the same nodes, but some of them are yellow. So in the original, everything is white. In the inherited one, we have some yellow scenes. The yellow scene means that it is inherited and all of this should be yellow. This may just be a bug, but all of these scenes are inherited from the parent scene. And what is really important now if I go to the level and I, for example, delete the drone, if I now save the level again and return to the unsaved scene, the drone has also disappeared. Which means that whatever change we are making to the parent scene, it will also affect the child scene. And I guess to make all of this a bit more noticeable, let me rename this scene to the outside scene. And now, once I've renamed it, the bug disappeared. Now all of this is yellow. This is how it should look like. I can save all of this as well. Now I have outside.tscn. And if I run this, we have no change whatsoever. Besides that, I want to create from my level another inherited scene. So new inherited scene. Once again, I want to inherit from the level. So I click on open, and this scene I want to rename to inside. I want to save that one as well, and we have the name right away, inside.tscn. Perfect. With that, we have 3 levels. We have a parent, then outside and inside, with outside and inside being children of the level. The issue now is that both of the inside and the outside levels look identical. And for that, we have to make a few more changes inside of the parent. All of this needs to be quite a bit more flexible. For example, what we could be doing is that this gate isn't necessary inside of the parent. It should only be inside of the outside scene, which means I want to get rid of it. I can simply delete it, and now it's not visible anymore. With that, make sure you are saving this level, and now in the outside scene, this one isn't visible anymore. That being said, we can totally add it again. So with outside selected, I click on Ctrl Shift and A, and I want to add the gate again. And place it once again in the right position, something like this. And also make sure that it's below the player. With that, we have the gate inside of the outside scene, but inside doesn't have it. And a similar thing, if I go back to the level, I want to do with all of the nodes inside of the ground node 2D. So for that, I want to right click and cut all of them out. The level scene becomes really empty. And this is by design. All of this should be empty so we can design the actual level inside of the child scenes. In there, we still have all of the stuff from the parent, and that is because I have to save this level. It's very easy to forget. Now, the ground node is entirely empty. But what we can do now is simply paste all of the stuff we have cut out, and there we have the level again. However, inside of the inside level, none of that is visible. So this is looking significantly better. At this point, I can play both of these scenes. So if I run the outside scene, just the scene itself, which I do with this icon, I can still run around. Everything is working just fine. So this is really good. We also still have the house over there, and all of this is working. Although there's going to be one change we have to make, and that is the gate entrance. This one doesn't work anymore because we have to reconnect the signal, but that is quite easily done. What is much more important now, if I go to the inside level and run all of that, I can run around and there's nothing right now. However, we still have a camera and we can still shoot a laser. We can also shoot a grenade, so this is working just fine. And there, if I shoot it, you can see the camera is still working. That is the basics of inheritance. If you're creating multiple levels, you want to have a parent level that is ultimately quite bare bone. So in this case, we have a node 2D for the level, then a ground node, then the player, and then projectiles. However, then inside of the outside scene, we have the actual images that flesh out the level. And besides that, we have an inside scene, and this one we're going to decorate in just a bit. First of all, though, we have to cover one more thing. And that is that if I zoom in, this area 2D has lost its functionality. If you look at the code, we want to reconnect this signal. But there's a bit of a problem right now. And that is that this outside scene has the level node. So if you hover over it, you can see level.gd. If I go to the parent node, the level, we have the same script, so level.gd. And inside of the inside scene, we also have level.gd, which basically means that all 3 scenes share one script, which might be intentional, but very often it is not. For example, for the outside scene, we want to have the functionality for the gate only inside of this particular scene, which basically means for the outside level, I want to have another script and this script should inherit from the level scene as well. And that you can also do quite easily. First of all, with outside selected, I'm going to click on this icon, which is going to detach the script from the selected node. If I click on that, we don't have a script anymore. But now I can add another script, and this one would be outside.gd. Script as side script, which and inside of the. If you look at the code, we want to reconnect this signal. But there's a bit of a problem right now, and that is that this outside scene has the level node, so if you hover over it, you can see level.gd. If I go to the parent node, the level, we have the same script, so level.gd, and inside of the inside scene, we also have level.gd, which basically means that all three scenes share one script, which might be intentional, but very often it is not. For example, for the outside scene, we want to have the functionality for the gate only inside of this particular scene, which basically means for the outside level, I want to have another script, and this script should inherit from the level scene as well. And that you can also do quite easily. First of all, with outside selected, I'm going to click on this icon, which is going to detach the script from the selected node. If I click on that, we don't have a script anymore. But now I can add another script, and this one would be outside.gd. I want to save all of that in the same folder, so all of this is looking really good. I can now click on create. And with that, if I run this particular scene, we are losing our access to the laser. So now, once again, we don't have level.gd anymore, meaning nothing is going to happen. Which means we have to figure out how to get all of the code from level.gd into outside.gd. To achieve that, you want to go to level.gd, and then all the way at the top, you want to create what is called a class underscore name. And you can see once you write it, it becomes red right away. Once we have that, Godot wants to have a name for this class name. In my case, I'm going to call it level parent. What this allows us to do is to inherit from this script, which means inside of outside. I don't want to extend a node2d. Instead, I want to extend a level parent. Right now, Godot cannot find it because we have to save level.gd. If I save it, go back to outside, now the error should disappear. And there we go. If I now run all of this again, I can shoot, and you can see I have loaded level, the parent scene. And this one doesn't contain anything right now. Instead, I want to play the outside scene. So if I run all of that, now we have the shooting functionality once again. So this one is working just as before. And that is because with this class name, we can inherit from the script like we have inherited a scene. So all of these functionalities are available inside of outside.gd. What this is going to allow us, inside of level.gd, we want to cut out this onGate player entered gate. So I can simply Control or Command X and get rid of this code because we don't need it inside of level.gd. It should only exist inside of outside.gd. And let me save level.gd really quick. And now in outside.gd, I want to select the gate, go to node, and now player entered gate. We can connect to the outside scene. And with that, we get the signal once again. And inside of there, I want to paste the code in that we had earlier, like so. If I run this scene again and I go to the gate, the player stops moving really quickly. Meaning this code is working just fine and it is only available inside the outside scene. Inside doesn't have anything like that, but it does have access to all of the stuff from the level. Although we are getting a debugger error, and that is because in outside, there should be an underscore body. With this part implemented, we have the two major approaches to inheritance. You can either inherit from a scene, which you do by going to scene and then new inherited scene, or Control or Command Shift and N. You can also inherit from a script, and this you do, for example, inside of laser,
This part
you are
understandable.
giving
So
a script
tell
a
me
class
how I
name.
switch scenes.
And then on any child script, you are extending this script, not the node you're inheriting from. That is pretty much all you have to know. If you understand that, you can work with inheritance quite well. Now, this is incredibly important to understand, so I really want to do an exercise. I want you guys to create a generic item container scene. This should just be a static object, a sprite, and a collision shape. It should also have a script with a hit function. So if a laser collides with it, you are printing something. This could be literally anything. Let's say for now, you should be printing the word object. From that, I want you guys to create two child scenes. One should be for toy toilet, the other for box. All of the graphics you can find inside of graphics and object printing toilet for the toilet and box for the box. pause the video now. Scene, item, and about it. I want to go to scenes, and in there, I want to create a new folder.
That was easy.
I suppose I could call it container. All I have to do in there is save it, and now we have an item container. This one should get a script right away. So I attach a script, item container, the same folder, all of that is looking really good. I can create, and all I really want to do in here is to create a function for hit. Without
Try something else before he does it. There is an easy way, but
Without any parameters, and all I want to do is to print the word object. With that, we have inherited, we have an inside the way to shape to. I want to save all of this, and now we have a toilet. So for this, with this way, space, now we have that to be a get object. On top of that, the collisions are also working just fine, and the player can collide with them. So this is looking really good. Perfect. That's a really good start. So once again, we have an item container, and this is a static body 2D with a sprite and a collision shape. This we are using inside of the toilet to give it a certain kind of texture and a certain kind of collision shape. Same with the crate. In this one, we have another texture and another collision shape, and on top of that, we are adding another sprite 2D. Whenever you do inheritance, I guess the best way to think about it is that whatever you're doing to the parent is going to affect the children. However, what you're doing to the children is not going to affect the parents or the other children. That way, we can customize each children individually without affecting any other child. Next up, we have to work with the script. So just as a reminder, if I run all of this again, if I shoot at the toilet and the crate, we always get object. And this is not what I want. Right now, the issue is that the item container, the toilet, and the crate all share the same script. They all have itemcontainer.gd. To work with that, I want to open the itemcontainer.gd script and give it a class name. Class underscore name. I suppose item container for this one is also a pretty good name. This now allows me to inherit from the script, which I want to do inside of the toilet. First of all, though, I have to get rid of the previous script. For that, I want to detach that script and add a new one. It should be called toilet. This one's just fine, and I want to create that one. Really important, I don't want to extend a static body 2D. Instead, I want to extend this itemcontainer.gd, meaning I want to extend this class name. For that, inside of toilet.gd, I want to extend the item container. So far, this is not going to make a difference. So if I just run all of this, I can still shoot at the toilet and we get object. However, this allows me now, inside of toilet.gd, to create another function called hit. This one should simply print toilet. What is now going to happen is that toilet.gd is looking at the item container and
please
gets
don't
access
tell me
to
this is the
all of these
solution.
functions.
Please,
or more
there is a
specifically,
way
this
better
one particular
solution than
function.
that. Please.
But then it also looks at its own body, where it also finds a hit function. And it always prioritizes its own hit function, meaning this hit function is going to override this hit function inside of the parent. As a consequence, if we are running the outside scene again, I can shoot at the toilet and we get toilet. However, if I shoot at the crate, we're getting object. To work on that, inside of the crate, I should also rename the item container to crate. Next up, I want to detach the script and attach a new one with crate.gd. This one, once again, should inherit from item container. And after that, I want to create a new function that is going to be hit without any parameters. And for now, it is just going to print crate. That should cover everything we need. I can run outside, we have toilet, and we have crate, and this is looking really good. I suppose to demonstrate that we are still getting from level container the basic information. We could, for example, add a method here, let's say func underscore ready, and simply print object was created. If I now run outside again, we get object was created for both of these objects, but the other stuff still works just fine. Which means you could add any kind of function inside of the item container, and they would be available inside of
Comes
create.gd
razor,
and
right?
toilet.gd.
Sometimes best
Once
solution.
again, it might be a good idea to play around with this yourself.
Or sometimes
it can be a bit
solution is the
overwhelming
easiest
in the
one.
beginning, but
You
once you get
remember
the basics of
something
it,
like
it's
that?
incredibly useful, especially when you have multiple objects that are kind of similar, but not exactly similar. Before we finish with this part, there are two very minor changes I want to make. Number one, inside of the level, the projectiles should be below the player. That way, if I am running this particular scene, the lasers look like, well, they don't look like they're on top of the gun anymore when we are creating them. It's a fairly minor change, but once you notice it, it gets really annoying. So look at the gun, the laser always starts on top of it, which isn't ideal. But if we have the projectiles below the player, this is not a problem. Besides that, I want to go to Project, Project Settings, and there, inside of Run, we can set the starting scene, which I want to set to the outside level. That way, I can close all of this, and now whenever I click on this button to run the game, we are starting inside of the outside level. The parent level, the player is never actually going to see. It's simply a template for all of the other levels. The major part missing right now is that we have to create an inside level, and this is what this part will be about. And fortunately, there isn't very much that we need to get started. Basically, we're going to reuse the tile map and the earlier bits we have built to build this level. There's only one thing that I absolutely have to cover, and that is how to use a tile set across multiple tile maps, so we don't have to redraw all of the shapes for the collision and the lights. But that is very easily done. Here we are back in Godot, and first of all, I want to close the item container, the toilet, and the crate. So I have only the levels open. And what I want to do right now is inside of the level, I want to add in the ground a tile map. So with Control or Command A, I want to add a tile map. The issue right now is that for this tile map, we could create a tile set, new tile set, and then redo all the stuff we have done for the house. As a matter of fact, let me reopen the house, or the house scene to be a bit more specific. There we have built all of the stuff with a tile map. And the tile map got quite extensive. So if I look at tile set, and all of this, under paint, we have painted a whole bunch of physics layers. There you can see it a bit better. And on top of that, we have also drawn a whole bunch of occlusion shapes. All of this we right now only have available inside of the house scene, but we want to use all of that inside of the inside level. And for that, you want to go to Tile Set, and then click on Save the Tile Set. Now Godot is giving you a no file dialog, and there we have house.trace. This is the tile set we are currently we right now only have available inside of the house scene, but we want to use all of that inside of the inside level. And for that, you want to go to Tile Set, and then click on Save the Tile Set. Now Godot is giving you a no file dialog, and there we have house.trace. This is the tile set we are currently working with. And this I want to save not inside of houses, but instead I want to save it inside of levels. Save it in there. And now if you look under scenes, there we have levels. And in there we now have house.trace. Doesn't look like very much, but what we can use it for is inside of the inside level. We can drag this house trace into the tile set. And now we have everything available that we need. Especially if I go to tile set, all of the occlusion and physics layers are still available. So we don't have to redraw everything. Available that much, but what we can use it for is inside of the inside level, and physics layers are still available. So we don't have to. And now we have everything available that we need. Especially if I go to tile set, all of the occlusion and physics layers are still available. So we don't have to redraw everything. Also, the size of each tile is also correct, and that is occlusion and physics. Drag this house stress into the tile set, and now we have everything available that we need. Especially if I go to tile set, all of the occlusion
Yeah. Okay.
and physics layers are still available. So we don't have to redraw everything. Also, the size of each tile is also correct, and that is pretty much all we needed. Which means now we can start with the exercise. And that is going to be, I want you guys to build the inside level. Make sure to use a tile map extensively and add some lights, maybe some particles, and just make the entire thing look nice. Pause the video now and try to create all of that.
We are going to do this for a long way. Do this. I'm a moron. I'm really a moron. Come on, dude. Okay, I can move on.
Back in Godot. Before we start, there's one thing I forgot to mention. If you look at the layers, you can see that we don't have the layers from the earlier tile set. Inside of houses, we had, if I scroll down a bit, we had layers for the floor, the outer and the inner walls. These layers are not being carried over, so we have to recreate them. That being said, physics layers, or all the layers associated with the tile set, like physics layers and occlusion layers, those do carry over. So if I look at this house, there we have physics layers, and we have the occlusion layers as well. Although we didn't change them, but they would be changed if we had changed them. Which means inside of the inside level, I want to create a couple of layers. And I'm going to use the same I have used for the house, meaning we have a floor, then we have outer walls, and finally we have inner walls. I think I just called them floor, outer, and inner, but let me extend the inspector a bit and let's look at all of this. I called them properly. So outer walls and inner walls. So this should be called outer walls and inner walls. This is all we need. Now we have different layers. And if I now look at the tile map, we have floor, outer walls, and inner walls. Perfect. With that, we can start sketching out a basic shape for the level. And usually but in the actual lower the opacity, I want to select a giant. So we are covering a larger bit. If I close, good. All right, with that, we have a couple of interior walls. Obviously, as always, this isn't too fancy, and for your game, if you want to have a good looking one, you want to spend a lot more time on all of that. But for my purposes, this is a decent tile map. Which means next up, we can add some lights. Now the lights I want to have in a separate node, so that we have the ground, projectiles, the player, and then I want to have lights. Since we want to have this inside of the inside level and the outside level, I'm going to create a new node inside of the parent level. What I want in there is a node 2D that I will call lights. If I now save the scene, inside of the inside level, we have lights. The one light that we have already used, if I open, I think I called it light fan animation. That one, I can place this in a couple of spots. Let's say one here, then I can duplicate it. Place another one, I don't know, let's say somewhere here, and then the final one somewhere over there. And let's test all of that. It's looking pretty good. So I am reasonably happy with that. There are a few more lights that we can work with. If I close ground and look at lights, there we have overlays, and then there we have hole, infrastructure, and lattice. Basically, what those are, if I direct them in there, we have simply a kind of light texture that we could use as an overlay. The way you would want to use it, I want to place all of this into the lights. You want to go to visibility, and under modulate, you want to lower the transparency quite a bit. Something like this. So I could move it over here.
Tell
so
me
we're
how
covering the
I
entire
can
area.
load this, please. I just
And
want to
a
load
bit
this
more, something
level.
like that. And now, if I run the game, let's say for this, we have an overlay that adds a bit more texture. It doesn't look.
Actually, we should add one more area to the. Just let it sit there.
Look ideal, but I think you get the idea. Let's say for this one, I want to lower the opacity quite a bit. Essentially what you want to do is, once again, you want to scatter around a couple of these through right 2D. We could add this one atmosphere lattice. So with that,
Okay, dude.
it's going to be
Let's go, let's
move
go,
mode.
let's
Now go
go.
per high and lights. And those I want to add in the ground as needed. Like this degrees. The kind of here. I'm going to place them. A disco. The wall light necessary. Another light to do. I want to go. It's going to be a directional light 2D. If I add this by itself, everything is going to be really bright. That is because we are adding a color. But this is not what I want to do. I want to go to blend mode and then subtract. Now the color we have selected is going to be subtracted from the color in the level. Meaning the brighter the color is, the more of a color we are subtracting. So you want to have this kind of dark, so we're not making our level too dark.
Okay, I like this part. Good.
Also, if you give this color a bluish tint, you make the entire level more red. The way you want to tint, you can see the result. And I think this adds a lot more atmosphere. Let's try it again.
Smile. Yeah. Yeah. Choo. It's way better. Yeah.
And there we go. And for that, around the tail, way to circle once again, place it in there. If I change the strength, you can see what's happening. With that, we are lightening up the area around the player a bit. So let's try something like this. Use all of this again. And that is definitely too much. But you can see that now we have some light around the player, although it's way too strong.
Okay, I like this as well. Point 75 and this is 1.4. That's a feel better. Nice. I like this.
Let's keep it at 1. That should look better. And we probably have to work with the texture scale. Let's try to increase that to a 3. And there we get a slightly brighter area around the player, which I think helps a lot for visibility. But once again, just play around with the numbers and just choose what you think looks good. I think we should make the entire level quite a bit darker. That way the effect level at that way you want to disable it. Also, you want to lock the layer. That way you don't select it by accident. But with that, we have another level. The last thing we have to do to make all of this work is to add a final area 2D. And this can just be an area 2D. This one, once again, wants to have a collision shape 2D. And this collision shape is going to be a rectangle shape. And all the issue, however, is that the script attached to this node is right now a level.gd. So the one from the parent node. If I have over that, we have level.gd. Which means we have to do kind of the same thing we have done for the outside level, where we have created another script with inheritance. This I can do quite easily. I want to detach the current script and then attach a new one called inside.gd. I'm going to create this, and if I look at the outside level, they can see we are extending the level parent. This I also want to do for the inside level. And this is all we have to do for now. If I now run the inside level again, we should still be able to shoot a laser and shoot a grenade.
Tell me how I'm going in and out.
And we can. This is all working pretty well.
Is there a code? Change scenes. Let's learn.
What that means is I can say a signal level. So I want to copy all of that and paste it. If I now run there, the player stops moving pretty much immediately. Now this part has gotten quite long, so for the next part, we're going to work on the actual transition. First of all though, there's one more thing that I want to cover. The debugger is unhappy again because we are using the parameter body inside of this function and we're not actually using it. We're just having the parameter, which means we have to add an underscore so Godot stops complaining. And now run this again, no more debugger issues, and this is much better. With the inside level build, we have an outside and an inside level. So for this part, we will look at the transition between the two, which in practice means that we want to change a level, which means we have to load another scene, either the inside or the outside scene. Fortunately, this is trivial in Godot. It's really easily done. However, just transitioning between two scenes is going to be a really hard cut. We are immediately going from the inside to the outside level, which isn't going to look amazing. For that, we're going to use an animation player to add a proper transition. That being said, that last part we are not going to cover for now, because I will have to cover a few topics inside of the UI, so the user interface, to make that part a bit more understandable. So for now, we have a transition with a hard cut. Let's implement that one. Right now, we have an outside level, and let me close everything, where the player is starting outside of the gate. And once again, I want to make sure that we cannot select the children, so I can choose to place the player right here. Also, the crate shouldn't be there, and the toilet should also not be there. What is really important now to understand is that when we are loading a scene, we are loading all of this, which means that this player will always start in this position. Same for the inside scene, this will be the starting position of the player. Later on, once we add enemies, you're going to see what this means in practice. Basically, when we're going to this scene and we're adding some monsters, and the player comes in here for the game and kills all of the monsters, then goes outside and then inside again. So we are reloading all of this. Then the monsters would reappear. It's going to make a lot more sense later on. For now, just be aware that we are loading all of this, so all of these nodes, and this is always from scratch. There's nothing persistent right now. And to change the scene, we have to look at some script, and we have on gate player and that gate. If that is the case, we want to transition to the inside level. All we have to do for that is to get the tree and then run the method change scene to file. There you can already see Godot is giving us all of the scenes we have available inside of the project. And I want to look at inside level. That's very hard to read. That's a bit better. We are basically opening a file from the File Explorer. That's all we are doing.
That was easy.
And now, if I run this again, we are starting inside of the outside level. And if I go into the gate, we have another scene. This doesn't work the other way around. We're just stopping and not moving anymore. For that, inside of insight.gd, we want to do the same thing. I want to get the tree and then run the method change scene to file. And now I want to open the outside scene. And another way to get the file in there is you could literally look at the file explorer. There we have scenes, and there we have levels, and there we have outside.tscn. This you can just drag in there like so, and there you have the right file. If I now run all of this again, I am in the outside, I can go inside, and now if I go outside again, we are in the outside. So this keeps on working just fine, although you can't see very much that the transition between the two is incredibly harsh. We are basically teleporting, which isn't ideal, but it's certainly a start. Right now, we have used change scene to file, which works reasonably well. Besides that, we can also use get tree once again. This we always need. And then if I type change, we get change scene to file or change scene to packed. And what that means is that this method wants to have a packed scene that we are loading into the level. This we do all the way at the top. I could, for example, create var outside level scene, which has to be a packed scene. And to add this one, we have to do the same thing we have done for the laser. If I look at the level.gd, we are preloading a scene. Here we have done this for the laser, and here we have done the same thing for the grenade. Inside of inside.gd, I want to use preload once again. And what I want to preload is the outs, and here we have to do var, well, but it's certainly a start. Right now, we have used change scene to file, which works reasonably well. Besides that, we can also use get tree once again. This we always need. And then if I type change, we get change scene to file or change scene to packed. And what that means is that this method wants to have a packed scene that we are loading into the level. This we do all the way at the top. I could, for example, create var outside level scene, which has to be a packed scene. And to add this one, we have to do the same thing we have done for the laser. If I look at the level.gd, we are preloading a scene. Here we have done this for the laser, and here we have done the same thing for the grenade. Inside of inside.gd, I want to use preload once again. And what I want to preload is the outside level. Once I have that, I can simply paste in outside level.scene and comment out the earlier code to change scene to file, run all of this again, and we should have the same result. If I do this, we are still going between the inside and the outside level. So this is also working really well. I guess one more thing that could be super useful is that you can set this outside level scene to an export variable. So if I add export, we can change all of this inside of the editor. And right now, I don't want to preload anything, which means I am simply creating a variable that has to be a packed scene, but there isn't any packed scene available right now, which means if I now go to the inside.
Yeah, 1 second. I need to see this. Where did I do wrong? Factory change scene to packed.
Okay. This works and this doesn't work. If I start in the outside, now it doesn't work.
Level I am support. I guess one more thing that could be super in outside level.scene and comment out the earlier code to change scene to file, run all of this again, and we should have the same result. If I do this, we are still going between the inside and the outside level. So this is also working. Really well. I guess one more thing that could be super useful is that you can set this outside level scene to an export variable. So if I add export, we can change all of this inside of the editor. And right now, I don't want to preload anything, which means I am simply creating a variable that has to be a packed scene, but there isn't any packed scene available right now. Which means if I now go to the inside level or scene, click on inside, there we have outside level as a new attribute inside of the inspector. And there we can simply drag in a scene. Once again, I want to use the outside scene.
Why the fuck this doesn't work 2 times in a row? I don't understand some stuff.
so I can simply drag it there. Once again, the result will be the same. I can switch between the scenes very easily. Perfect. Now, this kind of setup can be really useful if you want to have a lot of control over what kind of scene you are spawning. For this setup, probably not terribly useful, but for example, for the lasers, this could actually be incredibly powerful. You will see immediately what kind of scene you have. That is going to cover the transition. Now, right now, this isn't going to look amazing. And to make it look good, we have to cover UI topics. So let's talk about that. The next major topic is going to be the
Okay. I don't wanna make too much progress because I didn't get this. I will stop here, but this has worked twice in a row. If I look this, this works always. But when I look this, this works as well. But when I block this doesn't work anymore. Why? Just why? Stupid shit happened today.
results. Now that we have covered the basics of UI, we can work on a pretty level transition. We already have a level transition, but it doesn't look very good. So let's make this a bit nicer. Basically what we are going to do to start this, I want to go side of a black the way it modulate. And then if that, I'm called change to animation. We are simply for all of this. Instead, I want to get the trends. So now if I save it, and now I want to pass in the target to the transition game being anything. The reason for that is that once we're entering this area, we are starting to play the animation, but we are immediately changing the scene. So the animation doesn't actually matter. For that, we have to learn one new concept, and that is called a wait. The way it does what the name implies. The way you are supposed to use this kind of container. The action. We have a texture rectangle. This one you could use.
I will move with this one, remove this together. I will search it later. Doesn't work. I don't know why, but this works fine. And I'm okay with it. Today's job is done. I love the creation of this house. I was a little bit stupid about the lightnings and the object toilet stuff, but at the end everything works. Time to go sleep. Good night, everyone. Thank you for watching.